So, of course, the third thing we're reflecting on today, acknowledging, is the Buddha's passing away. And we're so fortunate that he taught for 45 years. I think I don't know how long some of the other founders of religions taught. I know Jesus, it was only about 3 years, so we don't have all that much of what he said, but the Buddha, 45 years, and the dedicated, meticulous way that the mendicants memorized those teachings and passed them down made it possible for us to have these great books. So we're really fortunate for that. And also through that time to see how he presented the core teachings of the Dhamma to different people in different situations. He never compromised the Dhamma. He never watered it down. You know, he taught it from different angles, and he kind of, you see some parts that are more detailed and other parts that are very streamlined, and you really can get the sense of, first of all, his clarity, his incredible depth of wisdom and understanding, and then also his incredible skill as a teacher. I particularly love the way he gets people involved and they're asking to know. He doesn't just talk at people. So get them to really want to hear, what it is, and it helps them really understand it. So that, 45 years, and then of course, most of you probably know the way the story goes of his coming to the point. First of all, he became really, really ill during the rains retreat, during the Vasa, and he was close to death. And he's already 80 at this time, 80 years old, and he decided, he said, he should, let's see how I put it. He fell severely ill, struck by dreadful pains, close to death. But he endured unbothered with mindfulness, and here the translation is situational awareness is for Sampajanya, so mindfulness and wise understanding of the situation. And then it occurred to the Buddha, it would not be appropriate for me to become fully extinguished, to die, before informing my supporters and taking leave of the Sangha. So he didn't want to just die there in his hut without people being prepared at all. And Bhante Sujato, in his translation of this, writes a footnote that the supporters he's talking about are the laity, the lay people. We want to let them know and take leave of the mendicant Sangha. So, a proper goodbye. So he, really put his effort into calming that disease, and the illness died down. And then soon after he recovered, he came out of his hut and his dwelling, and he sat in the shade of the porch on a seat that was spread out. And the Venerable Ananda went up to the Buddha and bowed and sat down on one side, and he said, "Sir, it's fantastic that the Buddha is comfortable and well, because when the Buddha was sick, my body felt like it was drugged. I was disoriented, and the teachings weren't clear to me. Still, at least I was consoled by the thought that the Buddha won't become fully extinguished. He won't pass into parinibbana without bringing something up regarding the Sangha of mendicants." So, Ananda was so close to the Buddha, and he wasn't yet an arahant. And I don't know if you've ever felt like this. Some major change happens, somebody gets really sick who we're close to, maybe we feel very dependent upon, or something happens and it just like you're almost, you're disoriented and maybe a little bit in shock or something. And so it seems Ananda was having this experience. And sometimes I try to imagine what it must have been like to be close to the Buddha and be with him so much and be able to just, go to him and ask questions and listen to him. And it had to be an incredibly difficult, challenging thing for the people who weren't yet fully awake around him. And so the Buddha's response here is, "But what could the mendicant Sangha expect of me, Ananda? I've taught the Dhamma without making any distinction between secret and public teachings." So basically, I've been teaching and teaching and teaching, y'all. Told you everything I know. I'm not holding anything back. The realized one doesn't have the closed fist of a teacher when it comes to the teachings. And so that idea that he doesn't have a, secret teachings that he only gives to the inner circle. And I think this is a really good thing to pay attention to. Like in our communities, there shouldn't be an inner circle. Everybody's welcome. And the teachings are, certainly the Buddha gauged what people were ready to hear, and he would bring them along, even in one go, bring them along from where they were at to the full teachings. But that wasn't always all of it. It was what was appropriate. But then everybody's always welcome to ask questions, come back, hear more. And then he says, "If there's anyone who thinks I shall lead the mendicant Sangha, or the Sangha of mendicants is meant for me, let them bring something up regarding the Sangha. But the realized one doesn't think like this, so why should he bring up something regarding the Sangha?" He didn't really feel like he had to say anything to them, like no admonishment or further rules or, and yet before he passed away, there were some further rules that he gave. He gave some, guidance. And I love this next paragraph because it's so real. "I'm now old, elderly and senior. I'm advanced in years and I've reached the final stage of life. I'm currently 80 years old. Just as a decrepit old cart is kept going by rope or straps wrapped around it, in the same way the realized one's body is kept going as if by a rope or straps holding it together. Very, kind of just, that's how it feels. Sometimes the realized one not focusing on any signs, so signless meditation, with a cessation of certain feelings. So entering meditation so that he doesn't feel the body. Enters and remains in this signless immersion of the heart. Only then does the realized one's body become more comfortable. So he's just constantly uncomfortable, pain, and Yeah, like I said before, it's really a gift to us that the Buddha didn't claim to be immortal or without physical discomfort. He was just he was real. There's no kind of idea that the Buddha is somewhere still alive, you know, he passed away and quite in the open to everyone. So Ananda, since this is the way it is, this is how it is, Ananda. But he says, so Ananda, live as your own island, your own refuge, with no other refuge. Let the teaching be your island and your refuge with no other refuge. And don't be clinging to anything else, just the teaching. And he says, how does a mendicant do this? It's when a mendicant meditates by observing an aspect of the body, keen, aware, and mindful, rid of covetousness and displeasure for the world. They meditate observing an aspect of feelings, mind, or Dhamma, keen, aware, and mindful, rid of covetousness and displeasure for the world. So this is mindfulness, the foundations of mindfulness. That's how you live as your own island, being your own refuge with no other refuge. That's how the teaching is their island, their refuge, and no other refuge. And he says this again later on to the mendicants. And then there are a bunch of other things. This is all from the Parinibbana Sutta. If you haven't read it, it's really a wonderful account of what happened in those last months of the Buddha's life. It's number 16 in the Digha Nikaya. And then there's this whole thing about how Ananda could have invited the Buddha to live longer and didn't get the hint the Buddha was about to let go of the life force. But I think about it and I think, wow, can't we have some compassion for our teacher? Let him go. Who wants that body that's you gotta like an old cart that's gotta be held together by straps? And then when Ananda gets that this is really happening, the Buddha says to him, did I not prepare for this? No, I don't think that's right. Something like, did you not prepare for this when I explained that we must be parted and separated from all we hold dear and beloved? How could it possibly be so that what is born, created, conditioned, and liable to wear out should not wear out? The realized one has discarded, eliminated, released, given up, relinquished, and surrendered the life force. He has categorically stated the final extinguishment of the realized one will be soon. 3 months from now, the realized one will finally be extinguished. And then he tells Ananda that they should go to the Great Wood, the Hall of the Peaked Roof in Vesak, and call the mendicants together, and then he talks to the monks. So mendicants, having carefully memorized those things I've taught you from my direct knowledge, you should cultivate, develop, and make much of them, so that this spiritual practice may last for a long time. So, we still should think this way. Like if we take in what the Buddha taught and then we verify it through our own direct experience. And we have to really practice to do that. It's not going to just, come easily, maybe. You never know, actually. But it's like we have to be committed. And then in doing that, we develop ourselves, but we also are preserving this way in to the Dhamma for others. That would be for the welfare and happiness of the people, out of compassion for the world, for the benefit, welfare, and happiness of devas and humans. What are those things I've taught from my direct knowledge? And here he lists all the Bodhipakya Dhammas, the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation, the 4 right efforts, the 4 bases of psychic power, which are the Iddhipadas, the 5 faculties and 5 powers, 7 factors of awakening, and the Noble Eightfold Path. These are the things I've taught from my direct knowledge. And again, it's repeated. Having carefully memorized them, you should cultivate, develop, and make much of them, so that this spiritual practice may last for a long time. That would be for the welfare and happiness of the people, out of compassion for the world, for the benefit, welfare, and happiness of devas and humans. And the Buddha said to the mendicants, "Come now, mendicants, I say to you all, conditions fall apart. Persist with diligence." And he says something similar right at the end of his life. There's a footnote here from Bhante Sujato. This is perhaps the briefest summary possible of the Buddha's teaching. The world as it is and all the beings in it are created and sustained through conditions. Since the conditions that sustain them are finite, the conditioned phenomena are also finite and must come to an end. Reflecting on this gives rise to gratitude for the life we have and the opportunities it grants us, and determination to live and practice dedicated to the realization of the unconditioned nibbana. So I think this is what we take away, knowing that these conditions are going to change. This is all impermanent, finite, it comes to an end. Really having gratitude for what we have, for this opportunity, and being determined to live and practice, dedicated to the realization of nibbana. And on a day-to-day level, what does it mean? Is it possible to keep that intention to realize nibbana there in the background or the foreground and still work with what's right in front of us, our feelings, the challenges we face, the losses that we experience, the gains, all the worldly wins, worldly conditions. And I remember Ajahn Sumedho one time talking about, this as if you're walking on a path. Maybe you're hiking through the mountains. And you're aware of course, where you're walking, because, you have to pay attention, or you're gonna trip or fall or something. But you also have awareness of whether it's night and it's the stars, or the day and it's the sun, you know what direction you're going. And so realizing nibbana is a little like that. You have to look up every once in a while. Remind yourself what you're doing here. And I know that this is not the teaching we hear at every place that talks about the Dhamma. A lot of times people don't talk that much about awakening and realizing nibbana. But if we're going to be true to what the Buddha left us, the suttas, we would always come back to that. That's the backdrop. That's the guiding star. That's the goal. Whatever we're doing, are we moving in the direction to draw closer to completely letting go? That passage of letting go of all attachments, that part is so beautiful. And I read it again. No, it's here. Oh well. It actually usually starts with, this is peaceful, this is sublime. That is the letting go of all attachments. The ending, it's the ending of craving, but there's something else in between. Do you remember what it was, sister?
No, I'm not good with that.
Oh. The stilling of all activities. That's how it starts. The stilling of all activities, letting go of all attachments, the ending of craving. Fading away, cessation, nibbana. So we know whether we're going in that direction or not. And of course, in the Parinibbana Sutta, then there are many other scenes of, the Buddha lying down on his right side for the last time under the trees, and the people who came to see him at the end. The devas, so many devas. The whole experience of taking care of his body afterwards, and distributing the relics. And, again, this is how it ends for everybody's body, right? Can't keep it going. So the practice is available now, and we have to use this time as best we can. I was noticing earlier that, I've always been a little bit proud of how, even though KBV is fairly small, we've always had quite a lot of diversity. Cultures and countries of origin and age, and today I think we spanned the greatest age stretch ever. We got 4-month-old Asher, and you're probably holding the other end of it. How old?
How old? 78.
78.
Oh,
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Elizabeth.
I feel like I'm in Thailand. Oh my gosh. Yeah, but you held the other end of it.
It's on that
Protege.
It's on that.
That's kind of sweet. But every reflection, like, how do we use that? You just see the start of life. There's already suffering. He's very good. He puts up with a lot, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Pretty patient. Yeah, came in patient. and the progression, and you look at the people we know, and I'm sure people who have really used their life in an incredibly exemplary way. Sometimes it's because there are many, many challenges early on and we learn how to overcome them. Or sometimes it's the development of skills that really shine in the world, and sometimes it's teaching others and providing a beautiful example, and just whatever way it is that we live according to the Dhamma, we're a benefit to our own selves and we're a benefit to everyone else too. And so it's, important to reflect on this, that it's not just meaningless when we make choices about how we spend our time, or, the way we act, how we behave. It actually is important. things add up. That image of the bucket and, there's water dripping in it and, eventually it's full. If it's full of good qualities and good actions, that's really meaningful. If it's full of the other side, it's really painful. So, anybody else have anything they'd like to say or ask or add? Yeah, Elizabeth.
I have a comment. My heart knows all this about making the right choices and being desirous in a good way. Chanda,
Yeah.
of giving up, desirous of peace and the end of suffering. But it's still so hard sometimes with the world pulling,
Yeah.
and there's a limited amount of time. And so if I've practiced a little bit and I feel like, well, now I can take a break, which is true, but it doesn't mean being heedless. But it's very hard because the world, the information is always like, it's not always sensual, but often it is, but it's always distracting from the goal.
Unless we're looking at it in terms of the goal.
Yeah, but it gets a little distant sometimes. It's not always, it's hard with being in the body, in the world, and all the temptations calling me. Way less at my age because I know that a lot of things are not gratifying anymore. But it's still, if I'm a little tired and it's the end of the day, I feel like, well, maybe I don't watch the news right now because it's so awful, but the distractions rather than sitting quietly or listening to a Dhamma talk. There's still.
It's tricky sometimes because if you force yourself, you also, there's some kind of rebellion that goes on.
Yeah.
But if I don't know, I think of it as like we're training the mind, and it's not that different from training a dog or something, So it's like you have to find a way to encourage the mind in the right direction. And there are, I think a lot of times it's just, how does it feel? Does it feel peaceful and inspiring and good, or is it really just like nails on chalkboard?
Yeah, but it's the in-between, that distraction that it doesn't feel awful and it's not awful, but it's not really getting you anywhere.
Yeah.
So it's paying attention.
Yeah. That's why the Buddha kept talking about sensual pleasures, it's like, even the ones that, like you say, it's not all that exciting, but it's still maybe a waste of time.
Yeah, I tend to do that route.
But then, as I said, we can be so forceful with the mind that we actually create a backlash, and we don't want to do that either. It's not like controlling the mind either. It's really encouraging the mind. Anything else? Yeah.
Just a comment. Recently, some friends put together, it was on Zoom, it was about putting together your advanced directive.
Oh, could you speak a little louder?
Sorry. And so some friends got together, and one of the mutual friends works for hospice. And so they put together a workshop on advanced directive. Well, if that doesn't get you to look at some things that maybe you wouldn't have looked at otherwise, because you have to put instructions
Yeah.
for that people if you can not make your own, decisions. And I thought it was very freeing, actually. And it was interesting, some of the things that came up in discussion, because everybody has their own thing around death and letting go and stuff. But I actually found it kind of comforting,
Yeah,
that you can sort out what's important to you, you can let go of what you need to, and you can communicate that effectively with your loved ones. So I just found it really, really, freeing. And it dovetails really nice with Buddhist practices.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what we're learning to do, is to let go.
Yeah.
Non-attachment. So I just wanted to offer that. It was just, I'm not advocating, everybody, actually, my healthcare provider friends say everybody should have advanced directive, at least in the United States. Not everybody does, so sometimes what happens at the end of life, people are just guessing what they might
it can be a
want.
real burden on the people who, close to you.
Right, but if you use it as an opportunity to have those discussions with people important to you, it can also deepen your
Yeah.
relationships with people and further understanding, which I think is a great thing.
Absolutely. It's funny that you bring it up because there was a point earlier in the day when I almost mentioned that.
Oh.
Because it is a very important process to go through, what do you want to have happen at the end of life? How much intervention do you want to have? And then, like you said, Dina, the conversations can be very rich, and the reflections on, what is important to me and what am I trying to hold on to, and why do I not want to look at this? Usually that's something that comes up for people. Yes. So I think it's a great thing to do, and to do together in a group of unrelated people.
Yes.
So we have those conversations with the related people after you've figured yourself out. Yeah, it's very important.
Can we have a workshop here?
Yeah, I think we could have a workshop here. I think it'd be great. You up for that, sister? You look
Yeah,
like you're
sure.
up for that. Yeah.
Yeah, we have material from when we did that program. I'm sure it's still around.
Yeah, or even just getting the kind of standard advanced directive
I have a
forms. Or
website that is, my doctor recommended. It's so clear and
Yeah.
it's very helpful. Just like, very easy as a template.
Great. Yeah, if you could email us, that'd be good. We
I
can-
have to write it down.
Okay.
Dina, help me with that.
Okay,
Okay.
I also have a couple sites too, but one of the things I learned in the workshop, California does not have a standard form for advanced directive. You'll find suggested forms, but there's no official legal form in California, and some states do have that. So you have flexibility as to what you do. The important thing is to have something in writing and have it witnessed and all that, because apparently California won't recognize it if you don't have it notarized or you don't have two witnesses that have signed it. It's not a legal document, and if you make any change to it, you have to re-notarize.
go
or
back to your
sign it.
people.
Yeah, because they don't want it messed around with after it's signed, which makes sense because it's a legal document.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, mine was, I think I had 3 people as witnesses. And one of them's already passed away, so,
Well, you still got-
that
You
happens.
still got
I
two,
still have
so
2, I
it's-
think. I've gotta go back and look at that document. It was a long time ago now. And it's good to reflect on them from time to time and see if there's anything you wanna change. I know someone who does it every year at the beginning of the year. They reflect on an oncologist, I think it was,
Oh, yeah.
who had seen a lot of this is what happens. I'm gonna really know what I want when I,
Yeah.
make sure I've got that updated.
I'll also give, because this, again, I won't go into all the details now, but I'll share some things, Elizabeth can email. The woman who led the workshop, she works at a hospice in Santa Cruz, and she had these 36 wish cards that you could arrange, and like, what are your top 10 most important things? It really helped to sort out for yourself, but also to prompt discussions with your loved ones. I thought it was great, they're really simple. you know?
That sounds really good.
Yeah, so I'll share that with you, and they're free.
Probably something, oh,
They're
nice.
free, you can download them, and then, you know, you can order a packet of cards, or you can just use the sheet. But man, it was really interesting, that some stuff I thought wasn't important, other people might think that's super important, so it was really a helpful tool.
Yeah,
And she said she'd used it with a lot of people, and it sounds like they got that.
great. How many people would be interested in that workshop? All right. So hand up, no?
He's got it sorted, so it's fine.
Okay,
I'm interested. I'm sorry, I'm speaking out of turn, but I'm interested. This is Carol.
hi Carol, that's great. Yeah, we would definitely make it hybrid.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You can print your own wish cards. Yeah, that's great. I think we should put that on the calendar for before Vasa if we have an open day.
No,
We'll
coming.
try.
it's packed.
Yeah,
We'll see.
Alex?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn, but reflecting on like Amanda and how attached he was to Buddha, it seems like to me a bit of the practice is a bit like going through the grieving process and recognizing that death does come, and then when you do go through that grieving process, that painful recognition that it is inevitable, then you're more free. And I don't know if that's the right way to summarize the Buddhist practice or not.
Well, you definitely realize that everything's impermanent. And the realization of that is different from the intellectual acceptance of that. So, Ananda was a stream enterer, but he was not yet an arahant at that time. And in the Parinibbana Sutta, it says that when the Buddha passed away, everybody who was not yet an arahant is, upset in some way, but the arahants are like, well, this is just how it is, So, and then, of course, the story is that Ananda realized Nibbana for himself shortly after, right? So I think a lot of times when we're kind of partway up the mountain, you might say, then you know better, but you still have the reaction. And a lot of it, I think, is physical. And I'm not even convinced that the body of an arahant would be completely calm if some major crisis is occurring, because there's this physical animal level of reaction to things. But they know it's just a feeling. And there's all that, clarity of mind that says that's, I don't have to get involved in this, I'll just watch it. And so I would imagine, obviously Ananda did, it wasn't like he went on and on with that. When the Buddha said, okay, now let's go to Vesali, he's like, okay, So he's just reporting, this is the reaction that came up in me. It's not like he doesn't know these things. He had memorized everything the Buddha said. He just hadn't realized it directly yet in its entirety. Yeah. And so we should have some sense of where we are also on the path and keep coming back to those things that we know intellectually are true, but we haven't really gotten it at a gut level or seen the real depth of it. And when we see when the realization of these truths is there's a joy in it, even though it's like, yeah, everything falls apart. But to realize that and have a sense of relief and joy.
What's that place? I don't know if there's a name for it, but you've realized it, you're not a stream enterer, but you've realized it directly, some things.
You've had some insight in
Some
that.
insights, and then, but they're not they come and go, and they're mostly gone. But so you know it, you know what the truth is, but it's, they're just moments, and it's not your reality all the time.
Right. I think there's a certain amount of that, even after stream entry, some things. There's no going back to thinking that the body or the khandhas are self or anything like that, but there can be other things that one might still have attachment to. And you kind of get caught up in that. It's like what you were saying before, you know, you kind of get caught up in the world, or, you know, you get distracted by things, and then you pull back again. And so I think there's also habit energies that we have, or patterns, long-standing psychological patterns that we want to work through, and they still are arising, still getting triggered by things. And then more and more you understand them for what they are. But yeah, that kind of like, oh, you're feeling it, you get drawn into it a bit, and then you come back out of it again. It's very common. And a lot of it has to do with habit, the underlying conditions, patterns. We need to make them conscious. So, a name for it?
Well, I don't even mean a name, I
Yeah,
mean just
or
that place.
That is a thing that.
I guess that's
is
called the
experienced.
path of practice.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, there's 8 kind of levels of noble disciple, and the first one is practicing for stream entry.
Yeah.
So in the commentary, they have this breakdown of there's the path moment and the fruit moment, and the path moment when you're practicing for stream entry is like you're on the path, you can't like not continue on the path, but you haven't realized stream entry yet. You know, so wherever it is, I think there's gonna be that kind of moving in and out a little bit. You know. Or maybe a lot, but not enough to throw you off the track.
Yeah, it seems like in my experience, like even though I had like many moments of crisis, there's always underlying faith that like Buddha was telling the truth, and that it was always worthwhile to do what Buddha said, to follow the path. So even though I always had this floating idea that if I just, you know, distract myself with the world, I knew that this wouldn't lead anywhere. So even as overpowering it was, I just knew that this wouldn't lead anywhere.
Right, but this, I'm talking, that too, that's the faith, but I'm talking about direct realization. Not complete, obviously, but a true realization. Not just that he said it, or that you trust him, but you know it, because you've experienced it momentarily. That's that.
And those kinds of things are
between.
very important to bring back to your mind again and again and in your meditation, bring those moments up into the mind and invite that to unfold further. So when we have an insight, it's important to really kind of take a snapshot of it, really know what it meant and how it felt. So what's the message, what's the Dhamma, and how did it feel? And then when you're meditating, bring that up into mind, that moment. Really solidify it, you know, like, so that you're not forgetting it. You know, we can have a very strong insight into something and have it actually change things quite a lot in the way we do things, and then get pulled back by some very strong forces and attachments to where we can almost forget that. But if we have it in our mind that we're actually gonna really not let go of that recollection and use that recollection in the meditation practice to develop it further. You're conditioning the mind. So we gotta give the mind the proper conditioning in order to awaken. And by remembering how it felt, you bring up the felt sense as well as the message, you might say. And then you're not so likely to lose it. And you're also likely to develop it, build upon
What I've been doing these days, like right after meditation, when I knew that there is some insights, I write them in the journal now. I just started this practice. It is very beneficial because when I'm writing, I'm even going into the depth of whatever insight really came.
it. So you're doing it from a very intuitive level.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it becomes just natural that when I start writing it and even breaking it more into pieces, more smaller and smaller and smaller. I think that's a good practice because you forget that's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
I started a Dhamma journal at the beginning of this year. It's very, very helpful. Every insight, everything that comes up, and it's physical object where I can go back and remember.
Yeah.
I find it useful to go back to my previous journal and recognize that, oh, I would have reacted totally differently in this situation, because now I know so much more now.
That's good to reflect on too, the progress and how we've changed is really helpful.
I have a question. So at home, when I have like 4 or 5 hours of time, free time, let's say I've already done my meditation and then I've spent some time reading some books or listening to Dhamma talks. What else can I do to fill that time? Usually, after few of this, it goes to distraction, like watching YouTube or something of that sort. So if I want to stay away from the distraction, what can I focus
I
on
think-
other than repeating these things? I can repeat these things also, but like what is most effective way to spend time?
The first thing that comes to my mind is do some walking meditation. Like instead of it being the same thing, like sitting, the usual, and do some walking meditation and see what that does. Maybe chanting, something like that. Trying some different approaches. And of course, there's always listening to Dhamma talks, obviously. Or you could do something creative. Do you do any kind of like drawing or anything like that? Something that you would be like focused, but letting the mind kind of create or play with something.
I think it's swing in Zen there, like swing the rope or something. So,
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, it's a good point. Like how can we support the mind in becoming more peaceful without, we have to deal with whenever it gets bored or restless. And, a lot of times that might be revealing a bit of unhappiness that we may want to look at. So yeah, I think the first step is see if you can expand your wholesome activities that you can do on your own, and see if there are other ways. Then actually, the phone is so, or the computer is so seductive. It's yeah, I don't know, does anything there sound like it's a possibility?
yeah, I think alternating between walking and sitting meditation is something. And but again, usually I see like after I spend some amount in the practice, later on I run to some distraction, like it could be computers or it could be idle chat or chatter or it could be good stuff. So
Do you read the suttas?
I'm not.
You might want to start a sutta reading practice. either the readingfaithfully.org and you get a sutta a day, or just start cover to cover. We've had people who go through all of the Nikayas and then do it again. And it's super. You get used to how do you read this? And then somebody will say to me, this has happened, I am now reading the suttas for fun. Saying, that's great.
But I think you just read one page or maybe a few paragraphs. You should not read the more the entire thing, because you want to have more understanding in depth. That's what I do after meditation. Just try to read in 2 lines and try to.
It's not the advice I would give.
You want to.
Because it's okay, but it's not necessarily the way someone's gonna be inspired or develop understanding. So it depends.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah.
Reading a whole sutta is no problem.
Yeah. Because then for me, I was keep moving. Because I read for work, right? That's my job. So I was reading. You have to slow down a little. That's what my teacher said. You need to spend some time with the one. Don't rush the suttas. So
that's a good advice for you.
Huh?
That's good advice for you.
That's what it. Yeah.
Marianne?
Yeah, I actually am one of those nerds who read the Nikayas and some of the collections multiple times. But one thing that I appreciated is that there actually is an elegance to the arrangement of it. The arrangement doesn't go back to the Buddha per se, it goes back to the earliest monks, but there is an elegance there that is often lost when you take things sutta at a time. And it's also the case that I found some of my favorite suttas ended up being ones that I don't hear taught very often.
Sleepers.
I don't know what you call them. Yeah. But it does, it's not for everyone. Obviously not everyone has the interest.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't like it, that's fine. But there is some value in it for some people.
Yeah, this is a great example of how different we are in different places we might find ourselves at different points in our practice. So
It was Sime who encouraged me to.
I'll tell you, Sime was a great model. Steve also read him cover to cover all the way through a couple of times and started to categorize some stuff and make a table.
I do that, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm the type who's really lazy about reading, especially in my state.
You need the audio? God, no.
But what's been really helpful is taking classes like your sutta studies and also Sujato. I've been following him on Sati. He's teaching a course on Sati Center, and the one that he taught that has to do with the wealthy rancher, and it's and it's the language of the Pali, and if you love language and how the Buddha uses language, he's very witty, and the wealthy rancher says stuff in verse, and then the Buddha replies in verse, but then he twists the words around in Pali. So it sounds alike, but it has a little subtle different meaning as a response, right? And I'm that's really clever. And then that got me interested. I want to read some more, Otherwise I just that's a lot of pages and words. And,
yeah, it's so true. It's there are different genre within the teachings, and some of them appeal. I know someone who really finds poetry repulsive, and so you don't put that out for them, you do something else.
Danya. But it's a small, it's very short. But Ajahn Sujato made it so
rich,
That's so rich by adding.
Yeah. So I wish the suttas written more in that form where it's you're reading poetry, because I guess it's easy for me to digest. Whereas most of the suttas is taught they keep repeating the same, and I just oh my lord, how many repetitions is this gonna go on?
And
so
then when you're seeing repetitions, and then there's some slight little change in each paragraph, and you completely miss it because you're this again.
I think my mind is like that. It needs to be needs to be entertained. It has like something, the text has to like tease me or amuse me in some way. If it's just like endless repetition. And I do notice a subtle difference. I do, and that's when I wake up. Oh, there's something special in this repetition. It's not the same as the prior sentence or paragraph. Ooh, you know what I mean? But I get focused on that subtle difference and I forget the main point. You know, I think my mind is, yeah, I'm still trying to train it. It's a puppy that keeps peeing on the carpet.
I think Karen got their hand up.
Oh,
And
Karen.
then we probably have to
Yeah.
close.
Karen?
Thank you, Aya. Yeah, I wanted to go back to that question that Elizabeth raised about sensual pleasures. And my thing right now is like sort of wandering into watching things about the big trial that's going on.
Oh yeah.
And okay, I don't have to know every single thing blow by blow. You know, I don't have to know all that. But yet I still just get like sucked into it. But I was thinking about that question. I was like, okay, so how am I going to handle that? I mean, it's not really pleasure, but you know, it's like this strong desire to know, you know, what's going on. And so I was thinking about when I very first came into practice, I was already ill with my chronic illness. And in order to get to my meditation group, I had to trick my mind in a way. Like I would say, okay, I know you don't feel well, but just go and then you can leave if you want to. And invariably I would stay because I loved it so much.
Yeah.
And so
You
I was
probably
thinking,
felt better.
I felt so much better, but getting myself there was so difficult.
Yeah.
And so I was just thinking, you know, when Elizabeth brought that up, I was thinking, oh, well, I could do the same thing with YouTube. I could go look at a Dhamma talk instead and say, okay, just watch 5 minutes of the Dhamma talk and then you can go look at something about the trial. And chances are I'm going to watch the whole Dhamma talk, however long it is, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, it was really helpful because I was thinking about that in response to what Elizabeth said. And I have been struggling with this for a little while. So that's what I wanted to share.
That's
Maybe
nice.
it'll help other people too.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, and also we can tell ourselves, okay, I'll listen to an NPR news report once a week. And you get the highlights, but you start to realize that it's the same old thing over and over. Just a thought. It is very seductive. Ajahn Gun has said, everything in this world is so delicious. Yeah, we want it. Okay, well, I think that brings us to the end of the formal part of our day. And you're welcome to stay and have some tea if you want. Those of you who are here, I hope for you online you had a good day of practice. Yeah. So I think should we chant a blessing?
Sure. What do you want to chant?
Should we chant the Buddha's words on loving kindness? Everybody want to join in? Now let us chant the Buddha's words on loving kindness. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another, or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. And then we'll do the closing homage. Is that page like 20? All right. Do it in Pali? Sure. Arang Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Kaliwadi Swagato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sangham Namami. Thank you, Buddha. Okay, thank you. Yeah, you're welcome.